Hello, it's Tuesday, it's June the 16th, and you're watching the Botten Klummm Show again. So, hi, Brian, how is it in Omaha?
It's good, yeah, this is it. We're welcoming back all our viewers on the Botten Klummm live show. And don't forget, this show is powered by AXWAY. Kai and I are members of the AXWAY Catalyst team, so we are very proud to present this show. We're bringing people together, innovators from the digital community. That's our goal, right? And we had a really great show last time, right? Last week.
With Todd Holbrook.
Yeah,
so
the video spiritual guru.
The video spiritual guru. It was really exciting to listen to him and to see really that we are seemingly on the right track. But we are bringing people together. And again, we are bringing people together. We are bringing in my old friend, Mr. Matt Chalmers. Hello, how are you doing?
Good afternoon, Kai. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again.
Hello, and good morning, Matt. It's great to see you. Good morning from Omaha, Nebraska, right out here in the prairie.
So, how's it in Cambridge today?
Cambridge, glorious sunshine, unnervingly quiet in our house at the moment as I've chased all the children out for an hour.
Okay, good choice, really good choice, I can imagine that. So, we've got a topic today, and the topic, you brought it up, it's transformational data. So, what is this all about? Transformational data, strong.
It is strong. Firstly, let me say, I see we've got strap lines beneath our names. It is correct, I do work for DataStax, but I am also an individual, so I'm speaking here as Matt Chalmers rather than an envoy from DataStax. Why transformational data? I've watched many of the shows, and digital transformation, clearly a theme. It's somewhere that I've been working for the past 7 or 8 years. We worked together for a long time at Kai.
Yeah.
How did you guys meet, by the way? I don't want to throw you off your track, but how did you guys originally...
So we met actually when I ran the Swisscom API program, and I think we became friends immediately, I think right at the moment when somehow we sat at a dinner at this time and you started to talking about your experience. You just say it on your own. Where have you been for so long time?
Yes, as a child, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up, so I went and worked as a scientist in Antarctica for 3 years to have a long, slow think about it.
Yeah. So, and I've been submarine navigator for 4 years, so we had something to talk about.
Yeah, and that's really the only reason I ended up, not the only reason, the main reason I ended up in Cambridge is first employer was British Antarctic Survey, who are based here. When my wife and I faced that dilemma of joining the London rat race for schooling or run the hills, she didn't want to run too far, so we just ran to Cambridge.
I think it's a good move. I was in that rat race for probably about 10 years. I worked in London and Canary Wharf and in the city, and so although I do miss England, I don't particularly miss that environment where everybody's kind of shuttled in on the train and on the tube and nobody seems particularly happy to be there, you know. So I could do without that, but I do miss England so much.
Yeah, I think it will be much different when we go back to work, whenever that is.
Yeah.
But change for the better, I hope.
Yeah.
So,
anyway, sorry, back to transformational data.
Transformational data.
Yeah, so everything that I've seen, I can't and wouldn't name all the enterprises that I've worked with over the past 8 years, but they will number between 40 and 60. Maybe half of them are referenceable, but for simplicity, let's not talk about them. They've all approached this with a similar outcome in mind, but with very different challenges along the way. Telcos, for example, are challenged by huge investment in back-end systems, very complex political internal structures, often with a group and an opco mentality. The politics of mergers and acquisition are there. In finance, the banking was kind of driven by regulatory PSD2 GDPR stuff. For many, it was just a box-ticking exercise. We must comply, therefore we shall expose APIs, yada, yada, yada. Retail, the margins are so tight that I never felt they were able to fully invest. There was always a constraint thinking about return of investment or total cost of ownership. And for me, you can't accurately evaluate the cost of ownership or the ROI of a digital program. You kind of have to have some faith and throw yourself into it. Anyway, so all that to say, having seen this play out many times, I've concluded that what we were talking about as digital transformation, it's a buzzword, it's got some common phrases in it, but really it's just evolution and adaptation rather than transformation, which for me is when a caterpillar turns into a butterfly and flies away. That's a transformation, not
a real thing.
Your mobile app or onboarding your partners more quickly or making your developers be able to do stuff, cheaper.
Optimization and I've got one of my keynote slides says translation versus transformation, and many of the organizations we have been working with for so often, it's so sticky to stick to old habits, to old patterns, and just to be overwhelmed by meetings, and then a whole lot of energy is produced, but there is no caterpillar at the end. No butterfly. Sorry.
And we shouldn't devalue everything that's gone on. No. Because it's an enormous change from what was there before. There are huge challenges involved, and even just achieving some sort of organizational alignment is a kind of advantage, because in most places it's just a complete mess. But the reason for transformational data, everything that we do or everything that is done really needs to be based on outcomes. So the activity and the busy work doesn't count. It's what changes that counts. What do you start doing? What do you stop doing? What do you do more of, less of? What do you do better?
And so it's valuable outcomes, right? It's being able to measure the value, because we can all get an outcome like we retired our mainframe estate and we put in something new, but what value does that actually have alongside this transformation or this digital realignment or digital blossoming into a butterfly?
Yeah, no, it's true, and to be a bit more of a skeptic, the digital transformation that's happened has been about standardization. It's about APIs exposing data as products, standard communication protocols, alignment within organizations. But looking at it cynically, that is just plumbing. What's actually valuable is the stuff that flows through the pipes, whether it's oil, money, water, or data. It's that really which is where the value lies. So this concept of transformational data is making that data available and then exploiting it to achieve transformational outcomes. And a quote that we bandy around a lot was Angela Abrams in Apple, who said data will be the biggest differentiator in the next 2 or 3 years, and whoever masters data and unlocks the reams of data strategically will win. So for me, digital transformation phase 1, now we're talking about the transformational data.
Absolutely. We all love to cook, and we cook together very often, and so if you would have to cook a perfect transformational gumbo or soup or something like that, what are the key ingredients for transformation?
Do we need a soup example or a transformation example?
A transformation example, but I'm always putting it into something soupish or cookish.
I get it.
Main ingredients.
There are things, these are basic things, right? There's no wizardry here. This is common sense, I think. And I know none of this other than by watching other people do it and learning from the many people who've trusted me to get involved. Hopefully not too many regretting that, but there will be some who regret it. A real commercial imperative, by the way, business driver.
Pardon?
God.
I would just say comments below in the in the comments below.
My kids said I wasn't to do this. Subscribe to my channel below, please. So there's got to be an external driver, an internal initiative driven in an IT bunker, which is not seeing the light of day, isn't going to transform anything. There has to be an internal alignment. So the initiative might be owned by IT or digital catalysts or accelerators or engagement leads or whatever, but it doesn't matter who owns it. Business people are affected who don't care about technology. An anonymous developer community that you do not know may be affected. Your network of partners may be affected. So this idea of an alignment of critical components or constituents is key. And as I said earlier, even just achieving that alignment can be an advantage in itself.
What do you think about, just a little sidebar on this, so that alignment and the organizational troubles or challenges that you outlined, Matt, I worked in data governance programs where I was always kind of stupefied that, you had this notion of data stewardship, so you had all these people who owned the data, and somehow that was separate from all of this other stuff that you've been talking about. Do you think there's a chance with this transformational data mindset shift along with the digital adaptation that people can start to look at these concepts of data ownership, again, more of like an open environment rather than this weird kind of data stewardship kind of thing that I always found a bit bizarre?
Yeah, absolutely. Why would you throttle the exploitation of data through ownership in the same way that you would have one individual responsible for a relationship with a customer or an enterprise? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Maybe the transformation that has happened is that people now recognize that the data is only valuable once you throw it out there, and the more people can get to it, get at it, and use it, that's where the value lies. And this is, the idea that we're looking at here, transformational data. It's still data, it's just information, but it's information that lets experiences or decisions or investments, anything, take place automatically and intelligently without having those old constraints of data ownership, and you have to come to me to get it, and I connect to you with an API, and then all of that still exists, of course, but for me, or for me and the people that I'm involved with day to day now, it's more about exposing the right data in the right place at the right time for the right people to use, and being able to adapt and to move quickly, get the data to where it's needed as fast as possible in order to allow these transformational outcomes.
And so this whole discussion about owning data and holding it and just keeping it there, we went through it when we ran API programs. So you have these discussions about data ownership and who owns it in the end and who does it, and because the whole organization is it's built up hierarchically, and so you have these silos. But this API program idea just really is able, if it's applied correctly, to just break it up and give access to the data.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the latest book that I've got is one about management and leadership in the world of AI and ML, and one of the big hairy audacious quotes or statements in that is that civilization advances by extending the number of operations that we can perform without thinking about them. Now, that's it. Just throw the data out there, under control, of course, but let things happen and just propagate actions and change, and generating more data, more opportunities, different perspectives on things. But it's not just as simple as fishing in a data lake or chucking it out there. The volumes of data are growing. I've seen estimates doubling every 24 months. The amount of structured data, so data that's in tables with partitions and keys and organized and adheres to a data model, that's growing, which is a whole new discipline. So being able to scale your operation, for it to be on 24/7, it's got to be available all the time, everywhere. All of these are challenges that we didn't talk about in the digital transformations over the past 8 years. But now, I think these are the next things that are coming.
Yeah, and I think we were kind of treating the digital transformation, as you say, kind of in the same way, where we could collect all the requirements, then we have a project, then we build something, and then that thing is going to be the thing that satisfies or gets us to some kind of valuable business outcome. But you're talking about, you are truly talking about something transformational, where decisions have to be made in a changing environment. So, the technology plus the business influence on all of this has to work together very well, which means that people have to collaborate in a different way. And then we have to think about what we actually do, what we actually build in technology in a different way.
Yeah, and added to all of that and everything we've come across before, today you actually need a data strategy, or you need a line or a slide in your deck that lays out your data strategy, and everybody needs to align on that.
It's super cool.
It's more than just saying we're going to go digital.
So it's super cool to hear you to talk about a data strategy here. So we've been always talking about API strategy and all this, but we need as well a data strategy. So it's super exciting. So let's put it into some context. What's about data in context? We talked about it before when we spoke before.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that endless volumes of data are interesting and useful, but for me, they only take on real value and then therefore inform outcomes when they're in a context. So let's take two examples at opposite ends of a scale. At the more Mickey Mouse end of scale, or the noddy end of the scale that we might say in this country.
Thank you. Noddy.
The GPS data that locates your car on planet Earth to within 5 or 10 meters of its true location, the technology there is nothing short of miraculous, absolutely. But that single piece of data that says where your car is now, it's okay, but it's not that much useful. If we put that in context of the mapping data that is around it, the meteorological data that we can put on top of it, and the 10 million previous waypoints of where your car has been, now we're talking about real data in context. We know where you've been, we know where you're going, we know if it's raining, and we know how many miles the vehicle did since its last service, etc. But all to say, IoT and big data, again, they are buzzwords, but this is what I mean by data in context. It's not a single data point. It is linked to, yet independent of, a whole universe of other data, which gives it its real value.
Yeah, at AXWAY, we talk about the notion of Omni Experience, because again, it's the continual placing of the data in context. I remember years ago, again, working in London, we were looking at, taking census data, taking that kind of locational data, and of course it was really challenging because we didn't have the GPS, we didn't have that constant data. Now there's a torrent of data, and you're able to innovate. So I think it's driving innovation, and it's also making companies look at their own digital identity as well, because they've kind of woken up and realized they've got all this valuable stuff. I mean, Kai and I always get faced with the question of, how do you monetize your APIs? It's like, no, or even your data. It's like, no, don't think of it that way. Think of the monetization you can do with. It's a slight, subtle difference of and with, but I think that is the key. It's what are you going to do with all of this data that you've got in new ways to, like you mentioned, like if you own a satellite in-car radio company and now you've just purchased a streaming, music capability, how can you bring those two things together in a really cool, innovative way? You now have the opportunity to do it.
That's right, yeah. If monetization means how much do I get per API call, you've almost completely missed the point. Yep. And you're kind of going back to where I was talking about retailers who are forced to look at ROI and TUE. They will approach monetization like, how can I make money from the API? But that's not the point. It's about a much more playing it forward approach. And on the context, I don't want to end on a Mickey Mouse example. The other one that was relevant today in COVID times was one about predicting of disease vectors and transmission patterns to do with tracking. Excuse me. And this one demonstrated how in the GPS example we have got other data as context. Mm-hmm. But you could also have a situation where you need some sort of human context. And instead of it being a top-down big data machine, you need to combine that with some bottom-up real human context. The example in question was an app developed to track the spread of Ebola in West Africa. So this is 6 or 8 years ago. Yeah. Similar to what we're seeing today, use of mobile technology, so location on mobile devices, numbers, rates, sensors of infected people, assumptions about the method of transmission. So, today we assume that COVID is spread by people coming into contact with people, and if the R number's above 1, it's spreading, and if the R number's below 1, it's shrinking. But after doing modeling on there was two fundamental contextual elements that were missed. The first one was that in West Africa, it's not one individual to one phone. A phone is shared between a family. Therefore, you're tracking the movement of any number of individuals using that phone, completely missed at the time. And the second one was just some context about the vectors of spread of disease, and it's not over there. It wasn't to do with people coming into contact with each other. It is tradition to touch the body at a funeral. So every funeral, people are filing in, touching the body, getting infected. And those two pieces of context would have added, huge value to this experiment. But as it is at the time, they were missed. So that's what I mean by some human real life context as well as simply the data itself.
Yeah, it takes me back to the days of expert systems, right? I mean, when I was doing my master's at the University of Leicester, which is not too far from where you are now, there was a big emphasis on, I did my degree in geographical information systems, so that was at the dawn of this whole GPS revolution, but there was the understanding that we needed to have that human understanding. If you looked at a piece of, if you had a programmatic way to look at land use from satellite imagery, for example, you need to have that human expert knowledge codified somehow. So there was a huge emphasis on things like expert systems, and lo and behold, now we're in the revolution of AI and machine learning, right?
Yeah.
There's one thing I want to ask you, Matt. What inspires you? You're such an inspired person. I know you as a super inspired person.
Oh my, that's such a tricky question.
What's your source of inspiration? What did you do during the lockdown?
So in lockdown, when I read about what people are doing, I feel lame. I haven't learned a new language. I haven't done a garden. I haven't remodeled my house. But I found a load of headspace that didn't exist before. And I think just having removed the chapter of logistics and travel and meetings and optimizing airports and taxis and God knows what else, I've developed a headspace which has given me time to read again. And really, I was chatting about this with Kai earlier. In the last 12 months prior to lockdown, I was doing very well on the reading. I set myself an objective in 2019 only to read books recommended by my wife. And
wow, this is cool.
That's somebody who knows me well, but he's not me.
Yeah.
And it just freed me from this hamster wheel of reading the same old business optimization, this person's opinion on this and that, and instead just open a world of fantasy, release, true story, novels, biographies, and that really was an inspiration. Actually, undertaking to only read books recommended by somebody else just opened my world. I'm not saying I'm any more intelligent. I probably know more words. So as a result of that, I looked up and I saw this exercise that was saying that people, your average human uses about 4.8 to 5,000 words in their day-to-day life. Yet they know 20,000 words.
Yeah.
75% of them are unused. And just by reading these books by authors that I would never have even looked at, I've kind of appreciated, So that has been a source of inspiration. I don't think it's my only one, but put on the spot, that's the one that I'll choose.
The fun thing is that our chief catalyst, Brian Pagano at AXWAY, is always telling us from time to time, just take some time and read something completely. This is nothing to do with management, nothing to do with strategy. So this is what we're doing, and I think we're doing weird stuff. We are people like that. We're finding always something else to get into this kind of inspiration. For example, whenever I'm in London, I'm just meeting the Tate's Museum. Museum of Modern Art, and this is when I'm flying back to Zurich. It blows my mind.
So you kind of did like a loft conversion in your head. It sounds like you got a lot more possibilities now. You know what you just said though, both of you guys, made me think about something. And it's kept bringing us back to data. Sorry, but we're thinking about this kind of algorithmic approach to what people need. That kind of scares me a little bit because of what you just said. It's it started off with the Amazon people who bought this also bought this, right? Mm-hmm. Because they have the data, they know everything you've done, they know every order you've made, mm-hmm. and if you make an assumption that people just want more and more of the same, what's that gonna produce? That's kind of a scary thought to me, right?
Yeah. I think clearing headspace for either doing something completely new or that you would not naturally be interested in does an awful lot of good. And just the assumption, as you say, more of the same is better because it's got a propensity to sell. It's just rigid. And you can't surprise anybody anymore. My kids knew everything they got for Christmas this year because they'd seen it all pop up on devices in context adverts, no matter what. It's just open.
This is brutal.
Yeah.
This is brutal. I never thought about this.
Is somewhere smashing his phone. Yeah.
So we've got 4 more minutes, and we wanted to talk about digital haves and no haves. What's that all about?
Digital have-nots.
Have-nots, yeah.
So this again has come from being closer to my family through lockdown, and having worked in this digital transformational data space for the last 8 years. We're actually working in a bubble where we risk focusing on some people and not on other people. Mm-hmm. I don't think haves and have-nots is accurate. I prefer to think of it as a digital divide. So there are people at opposite ends of a spectrum, and I think this must stretch back to the 90s. As soon as the internet proliferated, even in developed countries. If I look, even at the UK, there's rural areas who don't yet have fibre to the home. There are places in the world where internet access is prohibitively expensive. There are places where you could only access internet via public Wi-Fi. There are differences in people's age, background, education in their terms to benefit from digital. If we think that there could be 3 billion people in the world, still unconnected 3 years from now, we've got an aging population profile. More and more essential services are becoming digital only. So 22% of the banks in the UK have shut in the last 5 years, replaced by digital means. So, challenger banks, and I've worked with some of them, places like Metro Bank, Starling, Monzo, N26, their value proposition is huge, but no matter how good their mobile app is, my mother is still short-sighted. She's still got a little bit of arthritis in her fingers, and she's still got a small mobile phone screen. So I think that, in our digital excitement and fervour, we mustn't leave those behind, and we've got to be really careful not to create a sort of either an age-driven or an analog underclass, because we are all so focused on digital evolution, efficiencies, adaptation, agility, transformation. So I think we just need to be very careful in everything we do to keep thinking about diversity, the people who are not as well able to exercise these things as we are, and build with them in mind. We have to cater for them.
This would be a perfect last word, because it's just fantastic. Don't leave people behind. But I've got another question.
Okay.
What's your next big thing for you?
The next big thing for me, I've just dived into a new organization with some familiar people, but unfamiliar technology. The next big thing for me is to proactively master that. So act like an owner, not a tenant. Completely devote myself to getting a grip of it. I go nowhere but my daughter's bedroom, which fortunately you can't see because I've got a black background. So I have got the bandwidth to master this story, and that's the next big thing for me, because I think in the past I've always been very good at relationships, very outward business facing, have never really needed to lift up the bonnet and look at the technology. I don't necessarily want to do that because there are enough technical geniuses or genii that I don't need to, but just actually master, the strategy, the product and the proposition, and come out of this whenever saying, I've got value for my time in lockdown.
Perfect. So thank you so much for being on our show. Just a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And we got a new quote of the week: "Analog underclass." I love that.
Digital divides and don't leave people behind. So this is thank you for being here. And
thank you.
And I'm gonna tell you all out there that we are moving our Tuesday show. We've got Tuesday and Thursday. We're moving it to Monday. So Botten KLUMM Live will be live on Monday and on Thursday, same time. And we'll have in the future shows again fantastic guests like Matt. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
That was great.
Bye.
Bye.
By the way, this show was powered by AXWAY.